Starvault is a 5v5 MOBA that's been around for quite a while, and there's so much going on here, I can't believe this game is completely free. The graphics are great, and this gameplay you're seeing right here is from the upcoming Steam version, which features higher resolution textures, a more complex lighting model, and upgraded VFX compared to the Quest version. And this version is coming on June the 28th. I quickly checked out the Quest version for a graphical comparison, and this too is oddly impressive for a standalone game, which made me wonder why I haven't heard of Starvault before. So I kept playing thinking something bad is going to happen to put me off the game, or some wrongdoing so catastrophic there must be a reason it's gone under my radar until today. But after playing it for 4 hours, I can't actually find anything wrong. In fact, it's been completely the opposite. Everyone with a Quest, and obviously when it releases later on PCVR, should be checking out Starvault, especially since this game, as I said, is completely free. There's tons of characters that require a little time to learn, but they all have their own tutorials, which at first I thought was a little bit overkill, but the more I played, I quickly realised it's because the character classes are all extremely different. And I'm not just talking about abilities, it's the actual VR mechanics. Having so many different ways to play this game kind of makes this like playing lots of VR games wrapped into one. You have the Archer, which feels surprisingly great to use with multiple skills you unlock as you play, and I got to say, I love this game for the character upgrade path. The way it unlocks abilities by defeating the enemy and collecting items, all the while offering you a choice of what and how you upgrade is pretty addictive. There's also multiple optional things you can do on the map while you play, which impact your team's performance. There seems to be only one massive map right now, which is probably the only negative I can find, but as I said, it's pretty big with in-game areas that unlock while you play, but I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. As I said, it's the VR mechanics of the characters and the classes that have left me kind of stunned. So moving on from the Archer, we have the Tank class. This is a massive dude with a huge minigun and some very cool perks. Like a rocket, you can physically attach to the minigun and then launch it to do area damage. You can also spawn a large turret that you have to man, but this takes time to build. That is until you get an upgrade to speed up the spawn time. And this does lots of damage. And what I like about Starvault as a playtester is how these devs clearly play VR games and have incorporated a lot of things that simply make sense in VR. And the game is genuinely fun to play, especially with a decent team. Now don't get me wrong, there is some confusion, even with the in-depth character tutorials. For example, at first, deploying the turret I just mentioned, which ended up being a simple hold the grip button and point, got me confused at first. But the training grounds are actually online too, so I found myself having a conversation with other players about their favourite characters and how to use the abilities. And it ended up being my own fault, because I was getting ahead of myself right from the start. I assumed wrongly each character would play the same, but as I said, they all have very different mechanics, and this not only surprised me, it added some real depth to the gameplay. Then we move on to the support class, which I think still does good damage, but it also plays exactly like a standard VR first-person shooter. And if you want, you can help your team by healing the players. Then there's the Mech, which controls like one of my favourite VR games, Underdogs, or for some of you, Gamertag, where you use your arms to move the legs of the mech, and the shooting is done by using head aiming. And this guy deals huge amounts of damage, especially when you unlock the missile barrage ability. And this mech also does like a super jump ground stomp, which was really fun to use. And then finally, my favourite out of all of these is the drone, which adds a flying experience to Starvault. It has a combat mode and a faster attack mode. In combat mode, it controls how you would expect any VR flight game to play, but when you engage the faster attack mode, you get a massive speed boost, but you lose the ability to steer with your joysticks, and instead have to use your head to steer while turning, which makes the drone much slower to use. But to counter this, your damage output is doubled, and you can unleash a devastating fire wave ground attack on the enemy. But the other trade-off is due to having air superiority, you have very low health. What I'm trying to say is this one game has lots of VR mechanics all rolled into one, and that makes it not only unique, but a very cool VR experience. When fighting a decent team online, the gameplay can be very stressful because teamwork is so important to get the win. It's a pretty standard affair of get to the enemy's main generator and blow it up, but getting there is the hard part. There's multiple bases with turrets that you need to destroy along the way, and in between this, there's areas you can choose to attack to gain perks for the entire team. There's also healing fountains and jump pads, which is essential if you're using one of the characters that's stuck on the ground to gain the ground back that you've lost if you get downed, because the further you progress into enemy territory on the map, the longer it takes to respawn. Now I need to speak on some negatives, and if there's any, it's the in-game HUD, which I personally dislike to see all this information in VR. But because it's a MOBA, I actually find all this information as essential as it is annoying to see. And I can't think of any other way really the developers could have given the player this information apart from being the way it is. There is also a free battle pass, but also paid battle passes that do help with progression and unlocks, but from what I played, you don't have to pay for anything, and instead you just have to put the time in. Overall, I've came away massively impressed with Starvault, and from what I can tell, the developers are always looking for feedback. Personally, I would love to see a new map. There's definitely enough here for any newcomers like me to lose quite a few hours playing, and there's still some bits I haven't quite figured out, like defeating this massive stone boss, which if you do defeat him becomes an asset to the team because you get to actually take control of it. It's a very cool game, and I hope you guys check it out because I would hate for this to go the same way like Impact Gear's Larcenauts, which is getting shut down at the end of October. And admittedly, these are very different games. One is a hero shooter that's more like Overwatch, and Starvault is obviously a MOBA. But the feeling of working together with players online to beat an opposing team feels awesome in Starvault, and that's the reason I wanted to feature it today on this video. With it coming to PCVR and there being some extra graphical upgrades, and of course having crossplay, it's one of those VR games that is doing a lot and deserves some attention, and as I said, it's completely free. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Let me know your thoughts on Starvault down in the comments. I'll obviously leave a link to the game in this video's description. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.